Hi, I'm seeing familiar faces again. I think this is my fourth trip to the Lauderdale-By-The-Sea political forum. There you are. So on behalf of the League of Women Voters and the town of Lauderdale-By-The-Sea, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. My name is Joanne A., and I'm a member of the Broward League, and my partner tonight is Monica Elliott, who is also the president of the League of Women Voters of Broward County, and she will be the timekeeper for the two candidates. As some of you may not know, we are a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose any candidate for public office. So the purpose of tonight is simply to inform you of the issues on this town and what the candidates' positions are. By the way, this program is being streamed by LBTS website and also on Comcast Channel 78 and AT&T Channel 99. And this entire forum will be on the website until Election Day. Also, just like tradition here at LBTS, I have a special announcement to make. There's another race, as you all probably know, the Florida State Senate District number 33, and Election Day for that position is also on March 8th. And because of that, there are now 4 early voting sites around the county that you can vote at prior to March 8th. In addition to that, there's drop boxes also around the county if you want to drop off your vote by mail ballot. I won't get into where all the places are and their times because they all vary, but to inform you that on the LBTS website, they're going to post a link to browardvotes.gov, and that's the link to the site, and it'll tell you where all the early voting sites are and where the drop-offs are for the vote by mail. So tonight's candidates are for District number 2. And as you all probably know, that regardless of which district you live in, which precinct, you can vote for one of these 2 candidates. To my left is Brian Kuszmar. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, ma'am.
Brian Kuszmar, and to my right, Randy Strauss. The candidates have pretty much decided on who's going to do the opening statement. Then after that, we're going to alternate responses from the questions. All of the questions that I'm asking are coming from the residents of LBTS, and true to form, I had about 60 of them.
Oh, my.
So I consolidated a few of them and cut it down. So what we have here is 90 seconds for the opening, 90 seconds for each candidate to respond to the question. All questions are to both candidates, with the exception of, I believe, one where one is designated for Randy and one is designated for Brian. So without further ado, let's begin. And I believe, okay, you're going first. Go ahead.
Say when. Well, thank you, Women League. Thank you, folks that are here tonight and this rainy night, and all those folks that are home watching in their warm homes. It's been my privilege to serve as your commissioner for Lauderdale-By-The-Sea for the past 4 years. I am now seeking a second term as your commissioner. I've been a homeowner and a resident of Lauderdale-By-The-Sea for the past 10 years, along with my 2 accomplished daughters, Danielle and Rebecca. Danielle, who's here tonight. As an attorney practicing over 3 decades, I brought my experience and insight into understanding our town's rules and codes and setting smart policy that prioritizes the need of our town. During the last 4 years, as your commissioner, I argued and voted for keeping our taxes low, reducing our millage rate, reducing our spending, and spending when it was necessary and prudent. I believe our town must remain debt-free. I plan on continuing work on improvements and projects, both public and private, including our citizens' participation, to keep in line with our past successes while maintaining our small town character that we all love and hold so dear. I will continue to fight to retain home rule and continue at a local level to ensure our ordinances fit our needs without being overreaching. I believe experience counts. I have that experience. That is why I am asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian?
Okay, I'm Brian, sorry about that. I'm Brian Kuszmar, and obviously I'm running for the commission seat as well. I've been in town, had business here since 1995. I opened my business, Commercial Rare Coins. Some of you are familiar with me. I've met a lot of you through my business here in town. I also have lived here about over 2 decades. I forget exactly when I moved here. Love the town, been here a long time. A lot of people ask me why I'm running. One of the reasons I'm running is I like a challenge, and this is something to me that is a challenge, and I think I can do a really good job at it. I've sat on the I was president of the Merchants Association early on. I think it was around 2000, also with Chamber of Commerce. I helped put sidewalks, actually, the larger sidewalks, not the paved ones, but when the Department of Transportation back in, I think it was around 95, wanted wider sidewalks. I helped get the wider sidewalks put in. So I have been involved with the city pretty much. And again, one of the reasons I'm running here is I think there's a lot of innovative things we can do with the city, which is, or I'm sorry, the town. I keep my apology there, but with technology, as far as reaching out to the local community. I was at a meeting not too long ago, and one of the things I noticed is that on a big issue like the downtown area where they were talking about the pavilion, you know, giving the pavilion over to, not giving, but allowing the restaurants to lease it, there were like 5 letters from homeowners. There's 5 letters that I saw up here. And I've got some plans on actually we got the technology out here to reach out to the homeowners out here, and we really should take advantage of the technology that we have to reach out to people, because one of the issues I see is, look how many people are here tonight, reaching out to the local community. Oh, I'm sorry.
You got the stop sign.
Stop sign, I'm sorry. My apology, thank you.
All right. Well, we'll be able to continue the discussion because you're the first one up for the first question since you were number 2 in the intro.
Okay.
What are your top 3 major issues here for LBTS?
I think the top 3 major issues, number 1, is increasing the participation of the local community. I know that we have, emails, and we have also we have the town website that people can look up things, but it just doesn't seem to be the amount of people here that there should be on an evening like tonight. There really doesn't, and I'm not, that's not saying anything bad about the community, but we've got to find better ways to reach out to community. One of the things, I think commissioners up here are like judges in some degree. We're up here, they're up here to take in the data and take in the facts and understand what the local community wants. But if you're not hearing from the community because of a lack of communication, you're not getting all the data you need up here. The gentlemen that up here that vote on things, like 2 weeks ago when I was at a meeting, there were 5 letters. There were 5 letters from community homeowners. This is an important topic that affects everybody in town. That was it. And I don't blame it on the city. I don't blame it on the gentlemen that work up here. It's just that we're a community of 6,000. We have the technology out there to communicate with every single resident out there. One of the things I'd like to do is create some sort of system. You see that up there where each commissioner votes on something, where we can have each homeowner in town, each voter in town, when we have issues come up, have the pros and the cons of the issues, keep it real simple, send it out to all the residents that vote in town, and let them vote yes or no. So when these gentlemen up here, if I'm up here, the mayor, whoever, we can have an idea what the town really believes and feels. Sorry about that. Again.
Sorry.
I got to start looking that way more.
Got to look for your stop sign.
You got to look at my stop signs, yes.
Okay.
But I have other things too. I'm sorry. 90 seconds.
Randy, what are your top 3 priorities?
Oh, I thank you for that. Continuing improvements in projects, both public and private, while including our citizens, is vital. Participation to keep in line with our past successes, like I said in my opening, while maintaining our character and remaining debt-free. That is vital. Making sure we continue to be in charge of our town at a local level with regards to ordinances that fit our needs rather than being overreaching or impede our ability to retain home rule. That is vital. And to continue maintaining and retaining and being protective of our beaches and infrastructure. These are all vital things that are important to me. Over the past 4 years, I know I only have a minute, we've done a lot, and we've had a lot of successes, both large and small. I'll talk about that more as we go on this evening.
So back to you again. There's been a lot of interest on development, a lot of questions, and many proposed improvements. So I would say this has become the #1 hot topic, at least for the last couple of years, and certainly in this election cycle. So the first one is, what would you do with Elmar? Lots of opinions, not a lot of consensus. What's your position? Do you agree with the decision not to go forward with the plans? And if not, now what?
Elmar, that's very loud. Elmar is very important in our community. It's the heart of our east side. Initially, when we were up here, with regards to the Elmar project, we listened heavily to our designers, and we listened heavily to our engineers. But ultimately, we ended up listening to our residents before we ended up proceeding, and that was important. Our residents spoke and we listened. They told us they did not want the project to move forward the way it was designed. And we listened and we stopped. And during that period, while we're stopped, and while we are reflecting on what we will do with Elmar, I thought it was important to move forward on repairs of our sidewalks that exist right now. And we did. We moved forward on repairing those sidewalks. We continue to maintain those sidewalks. And eventually, our hopes are we'll continue to replace those sidewalks with bigger, better sidewalks. But that's something that involves a lot of minutia that we have to deal with, both with our engineers and our residents, so everybody understands and we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Brian, do you want me to repeat the question?
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to talk with local residents on this particular issue, and Randy's right as far as listening to the community, but I think probably the smartest thing to do would to listen to the community before you went and got planners and before you went and got people to do the redesign. To me, you know, again, there's no faulting because this is a difficult job up here, but you have to listen to the people that live in these communities. I mean, if that's in front of your street, you need to listen to the people that live on that street. And again, the only thing I might have done differently is just talk, you know, got some input from the people that live in that neighborhood before I started doing any design. Might have saved a couple bucks there as well. But no less, you know, right, you have to listen to the people that live in the communities. I'm not up here, I don't believe anybody, any of the commissioners or the mayor is up here to dictate what happens in your neighborhoods. That is your job to do, and the job of the folks up here is to listen to that. So, yeah, I can't disagree with the fact that you need to listen to people, but I think listening to them first is an important thing. And again, this is one of the reasons why I think we really need to reach out to the community. We need to have some, we're a community of 6,000, 7,000 homes or something like that. I don't know how many voters exactly, but the technology out there is very inexpensive and exists for the commissioners and the mayor to reach out to townspeople and get a feel for what, you know, what needs to be done and what their opinions are and what this neighborhood thinks of new development in their particular area. So, but I do agree, it's the community's decision on whether Elmar gets, what happens on Elmar.
Okay, back to you for the next question. Public safety building. There's been an estimate and plans of somewhere around $10 million. And I have to say, as an aside, that's the number I saw 4 years ago for this building. So somehow, either you just found a lot of good labor or this has not been re-estimated. So anyway, it's an estimate of $10 million. Where do you stand on what should be done with the public safety building?
I've read that we're talking about the building for the fire department and the building where this is housed. One of the things I've discovered is that the big issue there is the eating facility, from what I understood. I spoke to someone about this, and they have to currently eat here, I think somewhere in the, if I'm correct, they're not able to eat over there. So really, the question is do we spend $10 million of our town's money building a new safety building simply because of a place to cook food. Now, my understanding is they want the ability to rush back over there and rush into the fire trucks and move around town, simply put. But really, I asked, do we have to have this building? Are we mandated to have this building? I was told no. And again, I'm going to say it's not my decision whether we build a $10 million building like this. It's the community's decision. And I would sure like to be able to hear from more than 5 people or half a dozen people on what they think. And this is why I think that communication with the local residents. I've been a resident here a long time. I read the Pelican, I read the online sites, but not always. It sure would be nice when important issues came up in my neighborhood, I get a text or I get some kind of thing that says, hey, what do you think about this? And at home, when I get home at night, I can look at it. I've got some ideas on some other things, but the biggest problem I see is reaching out to the community, is for the commissioners and the mayor to be able to communicate with the entire community. Sorry, stop sign again. I'm following directions.
Okay, Randy, what's your opinion about what should be done with the public safety building?
Yeah, quite frankly, I'm in favor of providing our police and our fire the best, most up-to-date equipment and facility that they require to do their job to keep us safe and maintain our way of life in our small town. Simply put, the issue, though, has been bantered about before, well before I was a commissioner. And I believe the consensus has been, and was at that time, to repair and maintain the facility that we have for now, without spending funds that may be well over $10 million, maybe $20 million. Ultimately, if the direction is to put our town into debt of that magnitude, it should be directed and decided by the voters by referendum, and we will act accordingly at that time.
Just out of curiosity, since you're on the commission, has there been an updated estimate of that famous $10 million?
Yeah, the last numbers that we heard, I believe, was somewhere in the neighborhood of 20.
Okay, thanks. Knew it couldn't go down. All right.
The price of wood has gone up.
So we've covered Elmar, we've covered the public safety building. Another really big one here on the vision for the future and proposed improvements is the parking garage. Coming up here myself pretty frequently, parking is a problem. So do you see a garage in the future? And if you do, where would you see it? And it's your turn.
To me, thank you. Thank you for the question. It's the town needed it and the voters approved it, then yes, we would have a parking garage. I could tell you that we've had a parking study done in 2019, and the parking study suggested that our parking was not only quite adequate, but in the near future may not even require as many parking spots as we have now. With the advent of Lyft, Uber, and other ride-sharing devices, including some things that we're looking forward to in the future, possibly with something like what Pompano has with Circuit and what Broward County is contemplating something of that nature as well. So quite frankly, at this time, there's no need for a parking garage, and it's something that isn't required in our town. Thank you.
Okay. Brian?
Well, I'm going to say something similar. Really, it's not my decision whether a parking garage comes or goes in this community. It's the decision of the people that live here. And I really surely hope that if that comes up, a larger percentage of people show up to give their input on this, okay? Also, a referendum could be a possibility as well, like with the a safety building that we have here. So as far as that goes, I'm kind of cool with that right there. But where was I going with that? My apology. Lost my train of thought there. Excuse me one second here.
No problem.
As far as parking goes, and again, I wanted to kind of phrase this the proper way and not sound like I'm complaining about it, but I've been in my business since 1995 over SunTrust Bank, and I can tell you prior to 2020, I don't open Saturdays and Sundays. The lady next door to me, is a hair salon, and there is no parking on Saturdays. There was no parking on Saturdays, on weekends pretty much. We had to have our customers park across town or pay SunTrust $5 to park over there. So to say there is no parking issues in town is, I don't know. As a resident and business person, there is issues during the weekends. It's mostly beach traffic, not so much traffic from local businesses. The other thing, too, is we're increasing seating out there. We're increasing the number of restaurants. We're opening more restaurants in town. More restaurants are going to require more parking. I mean, listen, it's not my decision to say we add a parking garage or not. However, the community is going to have to look at this at some point and deal with it.
Okay, I'm going to skip to a question that I had saved for later, but I think based on the answers of the first three questions here, I think we should go to the fact that referendums, you both referred to the referendums, you both referred to the fact that the people make these decisions. You are an elected official, you could very well be an elected official. So at what point and what type of issues should a referendum be used? I mean, there is a citizen participation ordinance, and so is that the only way that works, or is there another way? So I think, are you first, or? Yeah, you're first.
Is it my turn? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. You know, our town has a strong history.
Sorry, Randy. Thank you. Actually, Brian, it was your
Wasn't it?
turn. Yeah.
The uses of referendums, boy, that would be difficult. I think Randy would probably say the same thing to define what, I think in major issues when you're spending $10 or $20 million and you're talking about building parking garages, that the referendums definitely come in play. It's too important of a decision not to leave to the community. It's their taxpayer. It's your taxpayers' money. So here's an instance where I would like to see referendums when it comes to large budget items like that, like the safety building and like maybe a parking garage. It definitely has to go to the community, not be voted on the board up here, and not by a handful of people on a board. I think that definitely would need to go to a referendum. Now, what other items need? A lot needs to be done up here, but again, when you're talking about budget items like that, I believe it would need to go on a referendum because, again, it's your money. It's your money.
So just as a quick follow-up on that, so you're saying that these three items that we just talked about,
Oh, I think a parking garage.
Elmar, parking garage, and public safety building, every one of them?
No, not Elmar. Not Elmar. I think a lot of these things can be figured out if you actually have a good means of communicating with the people in those neighborhoods. If you're able to communicate with locals in a particular, but again, the issue here I see is so little participation. And again, I'm not blaming anybody for that. I'm not blaming anyone that works here. I'm not blaming any of the people that live in town, but there's so little participation involved in this. And then when things like this happen, a garage goes up or Elmar gets redone, people, what happened? You know? With the technology we have here, one of my big things on my platform is to give the town the ability to reach out to every one of you and give you the opportunity to give your voice, amongst a lot of other things that I can't tell in 90 seconds. And
Randy, how about you? All three of those issues that we just talked about, numbers 1, 2, and 3, should they all be on a referendum? And at what point, what type of issues should also be used for a referendum? And the citizen participation ordinance,
Well,
how does that work?
well, before I get, because you're throwing a lot in there for,
yeah.
for 60 or 90
I told you I wrapped it all up.
or a whole night town meeting. It's just a lot to offer. Okay, let's talk about referendums real quickly. You know, it's a citizens and commissioners' right to call a referendum an initiative petition under our charter. Section 4.1, I believe, and I strongly believe in our need for referendums and our citizens' rights to call them. With regards to something like a parking garage, or with regards to something like a safety facility, huge items, huge expenses that would put us into debt, certainly need a referendum on that, my opinion. Our town has a strong history of referendums. One of the most successful referendums was one involving our height limits. Those of you that remember back in around 2006, it's because of the citizens' efforts to put that as a referendum, to limit our heights in this town. It's one of the reasons why we're different from Fort Lauderdale, why we're different from Pompano. And that is why I'm a strong proponent of referendums. As far as what will you have a referendums for? Certainly big budget items such as a parking garage, certainly big budget items like a safety facility. Thank you.
Back to you, though. So back to these expenses. You just referenced the fact you have to pay as you go, it seems. You don't want to go into debt. So how do you pay for things like this if it's approved by the people of LBTS? Are you saying that in that referendum there should be monies assigned to it, ceilings assigned to that expense? Tell me how part of the referendum would work.
Well, I would suggest not going to a referendum without having some idea of what the cost is going to be so we could present it to our citizens to vote on it. Simple as that. You know, we are debt-free, but we are not only debt-free, but we have reserves. We also have money, a good sum of money that's unencumbered at this time. We do that because we are fiscally responsible and fiscally conservative. We sharpen our pencils when we have to. This past year, we rolled back taxes. As a result of that, we had some losses, but we were able to make that up through creative financing and being smart. And that's what we do in our town. How would we finance something like a $20 million project? Something that if we can't pay for it directly, we'll have to do a bond. But we're not going to do that without the voters agreeing to it and voting on it.
Okay.
It's pretty self-explanatory, just like Randy said. That's pretty obvious that you'd have to float a bond to finance it. I mean, I think most folks know that already, or you'd have to raise taxes to finance it. So, you know, if you're going to spend money, it has to come from somewhere, and those are the two most obvious places to do it. I guess there's some other creative financing that we could do, but again, floating a bond or just raising taxes would be your two primary ways of funding those two things. And again, that's the city, you know, that's the townspeople's money. It's really up to them. And that's why I said that important issues like that, $10 million expenditures, $20 million expenditures, you really got to leave this in the hands of the people that live in town and vote in town.
So just as a quick clarification there, so you're saying that it's up to the people, understandably, but each of these items coming down, are they separate referendum with a price tag on them, or are they all being put together with some type of millage rate increase or something like that? How do you see this?
How do I see the funding?
How do you see, I mean, I have to tell you that overwhelmingly, the top three issues that came up in these questions was Elmar, public safety building, parking garage.
Parking garage.
And all three of them. I mean, almost to an equal number. So, and they're all big ticket items.
All right, well, Elmar, again, I think should be primarily, I don't think there needs to be a referendum on Elmar. That's a local particular area. I mean, everyone uses Elmar, all the local community, but I believe that's a pretty easy to poll the local community to see what the community wants on that and just abide by what the community wants on Elmar. When it comes to the public safety building and when it comes to parking, I think right now, the issue of parking is, since I've been in town in '95, there's always been a big issue. There's been some folks that just don't want additional parking. They don't want more people in town. Back when I got in town, there were people that, you know, if they could have voted to close the bridge and close both ends of A1A, they would have done it. So, you know, they wanted to keep the town a small, sleepy town, but we've outgrown that. I mean, we're pretty much a large, you know, we've got a huge restaurant. When I first started working with the Chamber of Commerce, one of the things I said in '95 at the time, or '97, whenever I was there, I forgot. I said, listen, this community has a great opportunity to be like a Los Olas. And you know what? We've surpassed Los Olas, in my opinion, in many ways, as far as our traffic goes down here. However, as far as funding this stuff goes, with the parking garage, I think first we have to determine whether the community even wants a parking garage. Then we have to start looking at ways to properly fund it. And I think there's all types of, I'm looking for the sign, sorry. I think there's all types of, as Randy pointed out, you could float a bond, you know, you got tax monies you can use. There's a stop sign, yeah. These are hard questions to answer in 90 seconds because there's so much to talk about. Yeah.
There's a lot to discuss. And it's amazing how repetitious some of the questions were that came from the residents. So clearly, there's a lot of
Primary,
interest
yeah.
in what's being discussed and could be voted on. So back to you. What's your opinion of the downtown extensions for restaurants? Should it be permanent and expanding more sidewalks? What do you see?
This is a two-sided question that, again, I hate to keep saying it's really the community that has to answer these questions, but it's true. When I came to the meeting and I was listening to, local businesses, obviously, and I'm a local business too, would be for it. It's obvious why they're for it. Increase the amount of table space, increase the amount of business they have. But when I was at the meeting about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, I forget. But when I was at the meeting here, they read some letters on people that were against expanding that particular. There were 5 letters against it, and I seemed to after going out and talking to the local community, there were more than 5 people that weren't so keen on leasing those areas to the local restaurants. My opinion is, I've been to Europe. I love outdoor cafes. I've traveled all over. I've done a lot of traveling, and there's nothing cooler than sitting in an outdoor cafe in a beautiful 70-degree day, okay? So I'm not against it. I'm not against it at all, and I actually like the idea. But just because I'm not against it and I like it doesn't mean it's my decision. It's your decision out there. And we're not hearing from the community on what their opinion is on this stuff. And again, really, Randy sat here, 5 letters were sent in for people that oppose that. And again, I don't oppose it. What I am for is just getting more input from the community on this stuff. Does that, I don't see a stop sign, so I see a stop sign now. So.
Okay. Randy, what's your opinion
Well,
on the, you know what I'm talking about?
the downtown expansion extension, correct. Thank you so much. The last 2 years of COVID provided our community and our commission with a unique but unexpected opportunity to learn a lot of things. We all had to make some very tough decisions as a commission during that time, and decisions that might not have been made but for the COVID. One of the decisions that we made was expanding our downtown area temporarily to allow for outdoor dining and removal of some parking spaces to do so. During that time, we had learned from our citizens and our businesses that there was an overwhelming desire for outdoor seating. Additionally, a desire to expand the sidewalks in that business district. At the meeting that Mr. Kuszmar mentioned that there were 5 letters brought, in fact, there was a basket of over 1,000 letters that were brought expressing their desire to have an extension and expansion of the sidewalk and outdoor seating. So, frankly, I respect the 5 letters that were read, but when we have that versus over 1,000 letters indicating their desire to do that, it's pretty clear what our citizens of our town want. We also learned that we could do the expansion or the extension of the sidewalks and still have the capacity to remove some of those parking spaces and absorb that. We also learned by removing those parking spaces, we had a safer corridor between A1A and Elmar on commercial for cars. We removed the idea of stacking.
I think we need to extend this a little bit more. Why don't you keep going for another 90 seconds? Do you think you have?
I could do it 30 seconds because it's really important that everybody understands the removal of some of those spaces remove the abilities of cars to stack. It's a phenomenon that happens when cars wait to get into a parking spot. As a result of that, with the pedestrians and cars, it creates a safety factor. So we learned over those 2 years that we had now safer road, and that was good for our citizens, good for our town, and good for our businesses. We still have a lot of things to do, called the minutia of what we need to do in actually instituting and implementing those wider sidewalks and the cafes. And that's something that we'll do with a lot of town participation, a lot of roundtables, a lot of charrettes, as we call it, where our town people come in, we sit at tables, and we figure it out. And then we put it down on paper, and we proceed. And that's how we do it in our town. That's the right way to do it. Thank you.
Brian, you want to add to that?
I do.
That was a follow-up comment.
I don't believe it was 1,000 letters, Randy. I believe it was a poll that was done by someone that was working towards getting the pavilion, getting the extra tables on the pavilion. I think it was a poll. It wasn't 1,000 letters from the community. I wish it was 1,000 letters from the community, but there were 5 letters from the community, Randy. That was a poll that was done by Ann. She worked very hard to get a poll, to get Ann Marchetti, worked very hard to get a poll done to help expand the tables out into the pavilion. With that said, as far as you mentioned, too, also that we remove parking spaces, and I agree with you 100%. They were blocking traffic coming through there, so especially along A1A and along but we've removed parking spaces. We've increased seating. We've increased the amount of people that can come into town. So increasing the amount of restaurants, increasing the amount of businesses, and reducing parking spaces, even if it's a half a dozen. I mean, is this planning? That's pretty much, again, this is just questions I'm asking. It just doesn't, you're taking parking spaces away and you're adding more tables. And again, 1,000 letters, it wasn't 1,000 letters from the community residents. It was a poll done, but not 1,000 letters. I'd love to see 1,000 letters from community. And you damn sure, if I saw 1,000 letters from the community, I don't care what it is, I'm gonna stick with what the community says, providing it's within the scope of the law. So.
Okay, I think I'm back to you, Randy. It'd be the first answer to this question. Recently, the Chamber of Commerce asked the city to pay the Chamber's share of the visitor center. Do you agree with that? And if so, and if that were to pass, should the Chamber move out of the visitor center?
Well, the visitor center is an icon of this town. It's on the south end of town. It's the first thing that you see when you're coming from the south to the north on A1A, something that we're all proud of. The visitor center has gone through a lot of incarnations over the last many years. I think at one time it was used for the women's club. It became something that the town used for promotion, and at some point it became used by the Chamber of Commerce. Quite frankly, over the 2 years of COVID, there were some financial issues with regards to maintaining the visitor center by the chamber. The town helped out. Everybody agreed, and I, as one of the 5 people up here on this dais, wanted to promote the visitor center along with the Chamber of Commerce. And we tried that for a while. But things change. And the town recently took back over the visitor center, but not at the expense of the chamber, because the chamber still has use of the visitor center. And my belief is, and I think it's everybody that sits up here, that visitor center could be used by the community as well as it is for future events, meeting places, and continued use by the chamber as well. Thank you.
So just as a clarification, you're saying that if the city takes over permanently the chamber's share of the visitor center, you think that the chamber should stay in the visitor center?
Absolutely. It's a spot for the chamber as well. I think there's room in there for many other groups as well. It's a large center. It's been recently renovated. It looks beautiful. There's a lot of ideas and plans that are being put forth with regards to the expansion of the outdoor areas for gatherings and all, and it's going to be a benefit to our town. It's a beautiful place. I encourage everybody to come down there and see it.
Brian, what's your opinion?
I'm going to have to concur with Randy on this. So I believe, I'm kind of curious why the chamber doesn't have money, but I guess 2020 was tough on everybody, including the chamber. But no less, I'm going to have to concur with Randy on this. The town owns the property if the town needs to take it back. But perhaps we should consider some kind of lease rate. I mean, this is this is town property, and it's the community's property out here. Again, I'd like to hear more from people in the community about this issue, rather than just sitting up here. If it was up to me and I'm sitting up here, I don't want to make this decision solely by myself. I want to hear from the rest of you folks. And again, the thing that I keep saying over and over and over here is that the input. I mean, take a look at this election. If I hadn't run, 3 seats would have gone unopposed, okay? This is not a way a democracy works, folks. A democracy is supposed to work with participating people running in office. Again, I digress, but I agree with Randy as far as that goes. I think that as long as the town owns the property, that there should be a home for the merchants. Oh, hold on, there's not a merchants association, but if we had a merchants association, I think they should all be able to share that particular location. But do the townspeople, do you think that they should pay for it? That's not a question you need, you should ask me. This is a question we need to ask you.
Well, they have been paying for it, and I think it, until recently, that request just came in. If I read all the notes, that request came in a couple of months ago from the Chamber of Commerce, like maybe 2 months ago or last month?
Last month.
Okay. So it's very recent. It's not 2020.
Back when I was in the chamber, we were asking, goes back a ways. There were times when we were lacking funds. We were asking funds from the city as well, from the town. Excuse me, I keep calling this a city. I got it stuck in my head. It's a beautiful town. We had the same issues back when I was in the chamber. We were shy money. We were asking the town for money. Similar issues. I can't remember the outcome, exactly what we did at the time, but this is nothing new from what I'm understanding.
So moving on to another topic, I think by far, as a single issue, this was probably the largest one, vacation rentals, because it touches on so many different aspects of property ownership and what you can do with your property, licensing, et cetera, et cetera. So what's your position on short-term vacation rentals? Do you think that with such an increase, and we all know there's been a huge influx of people here to South Florida in particular during COVID, do you think this will dissipate once COVID starts to disappear, or is this something that we really, as a town, need to take a look at without changing the vibe of the town, for instance,
Right.
allowing this many vacation rentals? And what is your definition, while I'm at it, of vacation rentals, short-term, long-term?
Well, Airbnb, I've stayed at it myself in the past. So I've stayed at places. It's an issue all over the country. I go out to California. I've run surf contests out there for many years, large surf contests. And you read in the newspapers, and I'm saying it at Airbnb, and you see in the newspaper it's one of the biggest issues with the communities out there. Well, I can see both sides of this issue. First, we have laws in this country that allow property owners to do as they please as long as they harm no others. I'm not fully versed on property laws. However, can you tell people not to do it, or can you tell people they can't rent their properties? I mean, this is up to the community. Again, I hate to keep saying I'm deferring this to the community, but it's absolutely true. Is it my decision to sit up here and determine whether you folks have Airbnbs in town? It really isn't. It's your decision up here, and I'm here just to kind of relay that decision and vote on that kind of thing. So as far as Airbnbs, I'm not against them. I'm not really for them per se. I really, honestly, gosh, and I sound like a broken record, but I defer this to the community again. I defer all this stuff to the community. The job of the commissioner and the job of the mayor is to listen to the community and go by with what they're asking, okay? So if the community says to me as a whole, not a half a dozen people, not a dozen business people, not a poll, if the community tells me that they want Airbnbs or they want restrictions on Airbnbs, then that's what we need to do. We need to listen to the community. Stop sign again. I got to look there more.
Randy, vacation rental.
Thank you. The fact is, it doesn't really matter in the sense of what the commissioner wants to do or the commission wants to do. We're preempted by the state, and the state decides what we can and cannot do with regards to vacation rentals. We don't have the option of saying we can't have vacation rentals in our town because the state tells us we don't have the right to do that. That's plain and simple. What we do have the ability to do is enforce and create ordinances that are in place, or we can put in place, to protect us from vacation rentals and from the effects of vacation rentals in our community. Our commission was smart enough before the preemption to create laws that required vacation rentals in our residential communities to be at a minimum of 7 days. So at least buying some protections for the neighbors. This resulted in having less transient people coming in, and it was a benefit to the people who are next to a vacation home. We have ordinances in place which are related to noise, occupation, parking, and other things that can and should be enforced. Speeding is an example, and we do that. And that's how we deal with our vacation rentals in our town.
So I'll continue on this subject with you. It requires a license,
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
right? No problem.
Yeah, so
Go ahead. And the second part of that is you alluded to what Tallahassee did last year. I'm sure you're familiar with what's on the table this year.
yeah, well, there's lots of House bills and Senate bills that are coming around the corner that keep chipping away at our home rule. And one of those things that they chipped away with way back was the vacation rental issues. With regards to the registration, yeah, that's part of our things. That's part of our protections that we're able to put into place, such as of ordinances. We require a vacation rental Airbnb, a VRBO, to be registered and to pay a registration fee. We require them to have a person that's available to attend the property within an hour or less in case there's a problem, to have their name and their phone number on file in case there is a problem. So these are protections that we put in place. We can't protect everything because we're preempted by Tallahassee, but where we can, we do.
Okay, Brian, are you familiar with this? What's going on in Tallahassee, what happened last year and what's on the table again this year to further erode home rule, very frankly, of the local cities?
It troubles me. That troubles me. So that does trouble me because really government should start on a grassroots level. It should start in the local communities. It should start in the towns and the counties. As far as state constitution, state laws go, but when they start telling you what you can and can't do in your own community, again, providing it's not violating any constitutional rights or anything or any property rights, I don't see how the state can come in and force people to take Airbnbs or not. I really think that's a community decision. But again, it is what it is. We have to abide by state laws. And as far as my opinion on taking away home rules, no. I 100% think that the power should be in communities.
Well, you know, it's in the state constitution that they can do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's not much the cities can do.
Well, there's not much we can do about that, but
Right.
I don't agree with that at all. I mean, if that's what you're asking me. I don't agree with that at all.
I'll ask.
Just because it's a law doesn't mean I have to agree with it.
Oh, no. As part of that discussion, are you familiar with, have you ever read the minutes from or ever attended a meeting of the League of Cities here, which are very much pro-home rule? Have you ever?
I have not, no,
You
and
have
I'm
not?
sure Randy has because of the position he's in here, he would need to. So, no, but I certainly would, and, given the position, I'm going to do what needs to be done here.
Yeah, so you're not familiar with whether LBTS is an active member of the
Oh, I believe they're the
League
active
of
member of
Cities?
the League of Cities, yes, I believe we are, but I'm not, have I read the minutes? No. Have I read what's going on in some of the meetings and the agendas? No, I haven't, to be quite frank with you, but I'm not adverse to doing it. In fact, I'd probably enjoy it. I like a challenge, and I like reading things and learning new things.
Oh, you probably are.
Yes, we're a very active member in our league, and we get regular mailers from the league, and we thank them for that advise us of what's happening at Tallahassee and what's happening at a local level, and we support our league. There was an organization known as Defend Local recently, and we defend that. We support that as well. That, again, works towards preventing Tallahassee from chipping away our local rule, and it's an important thing. You know, one of the things that I failed to mention before is one of the things that we can do as a commission, because sometimes we're tied, and I don't just mean our commission, I mean commissions that are affected by this local rule chipping away, something called resolutions. When enough people yell and scream, eventually somebody's going to listen. And that's our way as a commission to yell and scream. Let it be known, let it be heard that we're not happy. We're not happy with what's happening up in Tallahassee. We're not happy with them taking away our local rule. And, they fail in doing so to understand the unique qualities of our town, or other towns for that matter. So, and that's one of the things that we do is we create resolutions when necessary.
Just as a point of reference, the League of Women Voters from national to state to local here in Broward is very much home rule. We are not fans of preemption. And interestingly enough, Tallahassee's not a fan of preemption when it comes to the federal government, but they're okay doing it through the local cities.
How about that?
It's a very unusual
How about that?
concept. But I digress. So the next couple of questions that I have here are from various totally different subjects. The first one up is pier maintenance. What can be done to improve pier maintenance? And also, can charter boats lease docks on private property, in your opinion?
Oh, the pier issue has been around for quite some time. And I've been hesitant to say this, but I have a sneaking suspicion that we're going to wake up. The pier is on this, when they do the commission meetings here, it's up on the screen up here. The pier is a historic icon in town. It's been around for a long time. It's been in disrepair for so long. It's not been repaired. If my business looked like that, and my business had such disrepair, I would have been fined continually, and probably, I don't know quite what would have happened, I guess, but no less. The pier has been in disrepair for such a long time. I think that we're going to see a good northeastern storm come through, or a hurricane swell come through, and we're going to see half the pier in the water, or a good part of that pier. I've been out there personally. I've been doing research for a month on the pier. I haven't told anyone this, but I've been doing a lot of research on this pier. You remember that we have major spalling going on down there. We have no rebar in the concrete. The solution, from what I understand, I'm investigating this more, is they're talking about wrapping the concrete pylon piers. This pier was built in 1963. I'm 8 months older than this pier. The lifespan of cement is 50 years in salt water. I'm afraid we're going to wake up one morning and we're going to see a pile of rubble out here. I don't believe, and really, please, anyone in town that wants to come and talk to me about this personally, I've done a lot of research on this, and I'm afraid that one of the central icons, we're going to end up one morning and see it in, hopefully with no people on it, but we're going to see that in the water one day. I need to discuss this more at some point too. It's
Okay.
one of my central issues here.
Wow. You've already done some
I've
research
done a lot of work
this.
on this, and I can tell you that, well, anyways, I'm sorry. I don't.
That's right. So first of all, who owns the pier?
Well, I'm sure Mr. Kuszmar knows that the pier is privately owned. The town does not own the pier. Therefore, it's not the town's ability to fix the pier and to do work on it. It's the owner's job. And in saying that, you have to understand that several years ago we had a major storm come through here. If you remember, Irma caused a lot of damage to homes, roofs, and it caused damage to the pier. As a result of that, the pier was closed. It was eventually fixed to some extent, reopened, but there's still a portion of it that's not fixed. And one of those reasons is, and I'm going to give you a bunch of reasons, but one of those reasons were some hurdles that the owner had to go through the Army Corps of Engineers, Department of Environmental Protections. There's some other wildlife hurdles that the owner had to go through. And I think there was maybe 2 or 3 other federal or state organizations that the owner had to go through in order to get permission to continue forward with fixing and repairing the remainder of the pier. I should add also, during that time, we had something called COVID over the last 2 years that resulted in the closure of the pier because we weren't allowed people to go out there because of the mandates coming from the state and our county at the time. So there was a lot of things that were against the repairs and finishing of it. The town of Lauderdale-By-The-Sea has gone forward in helping the owner with the repairs by trying to alleviate and get over some of those hurdles. We've enacted the help of one of our representatives, Representative Deutsch, in doing so, and we've been successful in that, and we're moving forward I think we've moved forward on clearing all the hurdles now, and now the owner of the pier just needs to move forward in completing his repairs. And that's where we stand today. This is something that is an ongoing, organic movement, and it's in the process.
Okay. As a follow-up, neither one of you addressed it. Can charter boats lease docks on private property, in your opinion? Should they be allowed to? We'll start with you.
Yeah. We have ordinances that require charter boats, if it is allowed and it is permitted, to obtain a permit. It's something that goes through our town, and our town makes that decision if it's something that meets our code. If it's something that requires to go through P&Z, P&Z will take it, they'll investigate it, and ultimately make a decision, and then bring it to us to make the final decision. That's what we do up here. My understanding, charter boats are allowed on a limited basis because we have something going on in our town right now that does have a charter boat, but it's an older business, and I'd have to defer to our town manager and our code compliance to see if that is something that's allowed right now.
Brian?
I've got to readdress the pier. As far as COVID goes, that was 2020. The pier was basically 2016. There were 4 years, nothing was done. Half that pier was shut down. The pilot, again, I've been out there. I'm a surfer. I'm a fisherman, as well as Randy, and I'm always out there swimming. I'm telling you, there's no rebar in those pylons out there. There's no rebar. That pier is standing on cement. Okay, and I've kind of been following up what they're trying to do with it and what they call wrapping. What I'm trying to do is find out, are they just wrapping cement with no rebar and calling that a repair? Okay. Pompano Beach spent $11.5 million in 2016. Now, I know it's privately owned, okay? I'm still trying to figure out exactly who owns it on a 99-year lease. There's only so many years lease left. But I think the city needs to act on this and act sooner. Again, we got hurricane season coming up. If that pier goes down, it's going to be a pile of rubble, and as soon as that happens, there's going to be no choices other than to just leave it that way, take it down, or rebuild the entire pier. I don't think the current owner, I'm not quite sure, but I'd like to see if he has the ability to pay for that. I'd like to see if he has the ability to fix the pier for what it's going to take. This is a multi-million-dollar job. And again, nobody's really saying or doing much. It's almost like hoping nothing happens, hoping that one day we wake up and that pier is not going to fall into... That thing is on its last legs. We're going to wake up one morning, Randy, and that thing is going to be a pile of rubble out there. And if you want to sit with me, I will show you the pictures. I'll show you the engineering stuff I've been studying. I'll show you everything I've been working on about this pier. It's not a good sign, folks. It's not a good scene. And this pier is a central historical... Did I get the stop sign?
Yeah, you went way past it. That's all right.
I'm not good at these stop signs.
Just to
Sorry,
continue
Randy.
this a little bit, I think there's might be a disagreement between the two of you, I think, on this. Like, he's feeling like, the owner doesn't, whoever the owner is, doesn't even have the wherewithal financially to do the repairs, even if you've jumped all the hoops.
Yeah, well, yeah. Again, it's a private pier. The town doesn't own it. This is a privately owned property, and it's up to the owner to repair it. Of course, to repair it within code, but it's up to the private owner. The town doesn't. I wish we owned it. I wish we had a pier like Pompano's, but we don't. We don't even have this pier. We don't own it. It's not our baby. It is important to the town. It is a symbol, but again, we have symbols in our town that we don't own that have been here for 50 plus years. We have beautiful boutique hotels that are on the beach that we do not own, and they're also symbols of our town. We have beautiful restaurants that are on our town, right by the pier. Aruba is one of them that's been here forever and has been an anchor of our town for many years and a good friend of the community. But we don't own that, and we don't do repairs inside Aruba because of that reason.
Okay. So that was a rebuttal on both sides regarding pier maintenance and charter boats. So starting back with you, Brian, water taxis. Do you support the idea that LBTS?
I got 90 seconds on this, and I want to answer the last thing here too. Yeah, if Aruba's property looked like the pier for 4 years with the structure rotting, that you would have fined them just like you did the eyesore downtown, the Holiday Inn that was down there. That what we get, 1.65 million or something. Randy was very responsible for getting the town money by getting that torn down. But meanwhile, a historical icon out here is about to really fall into the ocean. And you know who's going to end up handling that when that does happen? You folks, all right? Nobody's looking at this thing. And I'm not blaming you gentlemen are busy up here. I'm not blaming the city for this. I'm not blaming, but it's happening. It's happening right under our eyes here. Water taxi, again, I encourage any residents that want to talk to me about this and look at engineering stuff and things I've discovered about this when I'm talking about the pier, and I love that pier. The thing with the pier is that even though, Randy, we don't own it, when you talk to people in town, they say our pier, our pier, our pier, okay? And I understand the ownership thing, but are we going to let this thing fall in the ocean? Basically, that's what we're doing right now. And I'm telling you, mark my words, the next big, not the next, but we're going to look at a big hurricane swell that's going to have a pile of rubble out there. The state's going to come in, talking about the state's going to come in and says, forget it, you can't fix it, you got to rebuild the whole thing. And just like Pompano on their rebuild, 11.5, Pompano rebuilt an entire pier from 2016 to 20. 11.5 million they spent, but they built an entire a pier, and we couldn't do anything at all in 4 years.
You're on the spot.
Water taxi, I'm cool with it, providing.
Okay, well,
Sorry.
that essentially was a rebuttal. So do you have any more to add, or shall we move on to the water taxi?
We can move on.
Okay.
We
What's your
can move
opinion of
on.
the water
Water
taxis?
Well, as I've said on every issue here, I really want to hear from the community, what the community thinks of the water taxi, but I like the idea. It's gonna decrease the amount of, I'd be on it, put it that way. I would use a water taxi, but what we have to be careful of is we have to be careful
Where would it be?
I'm understanding it's that they're talking about the Blue Moon. Is that correct, Randy? Is that where they want to kind of, the Blue Moon is where they want to do the water taxi at?
Well, the Blue Moon property owner, Joanne Hoffman, has offered that as a potential.
As a potential spot.
That's something that we're looking at right now, and when it's my turn, I'll come in and discuss
Sure.
the issues that are raised by it.
Okay, I'm for it, but what we have to make sure is that if we have a water taxi coming in, it's not next to someone's yard. Some people are 10 o'clock at night, doing their thing and everything like that. So I like the idea of the water taxi as long as it's strategically placed, but we got some really cool places where we can actually put a water taxi here. So I'm for it. Again, if the community's for it, and as long as we can put it in a good location, I don't think anyone, it's like the Pelican Hopper, even better. But so I think no one would complain about having a water taxi, or very few people would. Again, if the placement's in the, if it's in the right place.
Okay. Water taxis?
Me?
Water taxi.
Listen, water taxi is something that's been bannered about since I've been a commissioner for the last 4 years. It's something that was something I brought up 4 years ago. It's something that the community shut down because we didn't have a place to put it. I don't know of any other places where the water taxi could be other than the property that it's potentially being offered right now. It's being talked about. We don't have anything concrete. In having a water taxi, there's a lot of pros and cons. And the pros are it opens up the corridor from the east to the west. People walking up and down the street, creates a lot more foot traffic for the residents and the businesses, particularly the businesses that are on Commercial Boulevard where people walk to go to the water taxi. People that stay in the boutique hotels on the beach could walk west, get on the water taxi, and vice versa. It potentially alleviates the need for cars. It alleviates the need for even the buses in the circuit because it allows an area from 0.4 miles east to west for people to walk. There's some negatives about it too. Potentially it creates a parking problem because people may drive their cars. They may park because they want to go to the water taxi. It may create some congestion for residents in that area where the water taxi is considered. So there's good and bad. There's pros and cons, and this is something that we will investigate. We will talk about. We'll have lots of discussions on it, and we'll eventually bring it up here to the commission to vote on. And that's something that's what we do as a commission. We investigate, we listen to our community, and then we vote.
Moving on to another subject. Your turn, Randy. Sea level rise. What type of planning is being done in expectation and the realities of the sea level rising? It's very evident here in Broward County and in several places. I'm sure there are right here in town. So how is that being addressed?
Well, first of all, let me go on the record by saying I am against sea level rise. Having said that, we're lucky. We have a beach barrier, ocean barrier community. Basically, it's an island community. but our community of Lauderdale-By-The-Sea is actually higher than our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the south. We have some curvature at the northern and southern ends that does create some drainage issues in some of the streets. Some of it's not necessarily from sea level rise. We have some issues from our neighboring town, potentially allowing water to come in to the south end of town, which is creating some areas. And we're addressing that with some drainage mitigation, and that's going to happen this year, particularly in the Codrington area. In our northern town, we have an area called Terramar, which is an island community, and it has an interesting shape. It's actually a little bit higher on the west and lower on the east. As a result of that, that created some ponding and some drainage issues as well. We address that as a town because we're a responsible town. We take care of people from the north, the south, and in the middle. And we put in some drainage mitigation in there with some pump stations. This is what we do as a town. Overall, our town is healthy with regards to that. But we do look forward 5 years, we look forward 25 years and 30 years by knowing that we have resilience issues, resilience plans, resilient officers, and these are all for the purposes of dealing with water level rises over the next 10, 20 years. I think by 2050, we're supposed to potentially have a rise of about 1.5 foot. I think that was in the news today. So these are important issues, and we do address them. That's what we do as a town.
Brian?
90 seconds. Okay.
Have you obviously
Randy's right.
have a lot of interest in water sports, et cetera, and the pier in particular, so you probably have done something regarding sea level, some
I'm pretty
study.
familiar with a lot of these topics. And talking about the pier, I want to give one other thing. I'd rather float a bond to buy and rebuild the pier than a parking garage personally, but that would be up to the community as well. Wouldn't it be cool if we owned that pier, the community? I think it would be, but that's a whole different subject. I'll go there another time, and I think there's creative ways for the city to buy it, the town to buy it, without costing a lot. There's creative ways of financing now, NFTs, bonds, you name it. There's ways that this town can own that pier. But again, I'd rather own the pier than own a parking garage. But
Let's talk about
sea levels. Randy's absolutely right about that, and I got to watch the stop sign here. Back when we had that last hurricane, they talked about flooding, that we might be underwater here in Lauderdale-By-The-Sea. The first thing I went and did is I looked at the maps done by, I forget who does those maps, but they do topographical maps to see, because I was kind of concerned that would I have to go up to the third floor during the last hurricane. So he's right. We sit above sea level pretty well here, so that's not a major issue in town. But I do believe that ordinances are changing. For example, seawalls, and Randy's probably familiar with this too. A lot of people in the community now, when they rebuild their seawalls, they have to build their seawalls even higher than they once. This is because of the potential of rising oceans due to the climate change. But ordinances now are requiring people to build their seawalls higher. And I think Fort Lauderdale had an issue, or Pompano also had an issue with one of their local parks flooding the neighborhood. They had to build theirs a little higher. So, yeah, this is an issue we have to deal with. And it's really nice to see that we're not waiting, that we're dealing with this stuff now as opposed to waiting for it to fall into the ocean. We can't stick our heads in the sands with stuff, but Randy's absolutely right about that. We do sit quite a bit above sea level right here, and again, all the new ordinances are requiring that people do build higher on their seawalls and stuff.
You're first on this question. There is a height restriction, as you know, on the buildings here in town. Is that something that should be changed given all the growth that's going on?
I keep, like a broken record, I keep saying, I would say that this really is up to the community. The community up to this point has been very happy with our low rise, our low rises. And it actually is what makes this town kind of special a little bit. I think it actually increases property values a little bit because you don't have giant condos sitting on the beach. But again, this is my opinion, all right? There's other people in town that have different opinions. There's people that own property that would like to build more than 3 or 4 stories. There's people that don't want that to happen. Really, this is not about my opinion. This is about the opinion of the community. And one of the best things they did is they put it up for referendum this way. Again, it's whether the height restrictions get higher or lower, maybe another generation of home buyers, maybe the younger crowd is going to like higher buildings, who knows? But right now, I think it's entirely up to the communities of the citizen. The referendum was the best way to handle this. This has been an issue when I first got in town. I think actually the referendum was put in slightly after I got in town, but this has been an issue for a long time. And really, it's great because none of the commissioners should be or have to deal with this. This is the community's decision. So the community comes up here to the commissioners and mayor, says, if enough people in the community wanted higher, really, then it's their obligation to go with what the community wants. Oh, I still had time, huh?
You're out.
I'm out.
What about the heights for buildings? Should they remain the same? I know it was a referendum back when, but there's a limited amount of space.
The height restrictions, the small town feel, the small town charm, the character of this town is the reason I moved to this town, the reason I decided to raise my 2 daughters in this town. It's what makes this town, and it's in our charter. We voted on it. We have a height restriction, and I will fight tooth and nail, whether I'm a commissioner or not, to never, ever allow that to happen and violate our height restrictions. Simple as that. It's one of the things that makes our town, besides the wonderful people that live in here. We have a strong sense of community. We have a great sense of walkability in our town. We have 2.5 miles of beautiful beaches, and might I add clean beaches, because we work at it. We have sand dunes that are healthy. We have planted sea oats to keep our sand dunes healthy, so our beaches are healthy. This is what we do as a town. The height restriction is paramount. It's one of the main points of our charter, and we will never allow that to happen.
This next question, one is specifically for you and one different one is specifically for you. Randy, I understand you're an attorney. What is the definition of hardship as it relates to variance applications?
That's a good question.
Well, it's an interesting issue because that's coming up for our commission vote on next Tuesday, actually, this coming Tuesday. It's involving one of our property owners and a request for a variance. So the issue is, does it create a detrimental effect by not allowing the hardship itself? Would that be a detrimental effect to the value of the property and the use of the property owner's use of that property? And that's one of the things that is the elements raised by a variance. One of the elements of variance is hardship. I think there's 7 elements altogether, and one of them is hardship. But that's a difficult one, but it's one that can be overcome. And the question's going to be when it is brought to us on Tuesday, and we have both sides speaking with their engineers speaking, and the evidence that they raise presented before us, as well as what the P&Z offered us with their wisdom. We'll have to make that decision if there is indeed a hardship.
Interesting. Your question, Brian, is how many commission meetings have you attended in, I'll say, the last 2 years?
Probably 2. Probably 2. I watch them occasionally. You know, you can watch them online. You can read the agenda. So probably 2 in total. I used to attend a lot more in the earlier days, but yeah, probably 2 of them recent, I believe.
Did you lose interest?
No, not really. A lot of the stuff you can find online. You can read the agenda. You can read the minutes. You can read exactly what's going on in the town. But one of the things, yeah, you don't really, I don't mean you don't have to show up. It's good to show your face here. I probably should have. So, but yeah, I'm very familiar with what's going on in the town. But this is, again, I would like to see, no matter what happens here, I would like to see the town take the technology available today and be able to reach out to constituents in town and ask them what they think on all these different issues. So no matter what happens, Randy, you and I will discuss this. So I'd like to see, again, I'd like to see more participation and more of the community You know, one of the things Randy just mentioned up here, he says height restrictions. He says, I would never, ever vote for height restrictions. But the question I've got to ask you, Randy, what if down the road you got a different generation of people in here, and you got a majority of your residents that did want to raise the height limits? A majority. What if a majority of younger folks, again, I feel the same way as you do. I love the small, but would you say no then? Would you listen to the community? If they, I know how my opinion is. I would personally not want to see high rises, but if a majority of the community on a particular issue says we want to see this change, I can't say, well, I don't like it, so I'm not going to do it. So the point there is never say never, Randy. A majority of your constituents, you may come to you one day and say, we'd like this change. And at that point, what do you say to him? He says, I don't like the way that looks. But again, I'm just kind of never say never. Oh, it stopped again. So,
Do you want to respond to that?
The people that live in this town, the people that move to this town simply because of the way this town is. That will never happen. And it's not that I'm against restrictions. I am 100% for restrictions. I'm against any raising or removing of those restrictions. And that will never happen.
but it brings
Okay,
up, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I apologize.
One last question here. And actually, Brian kind of alluded to it without going into detail. How does the commission communicate with the community? And also, as part of that, Brian said he reads the updated minutes. I can tell you, because I've been on the website quite a bit in the last few days, there aren't any updated minutes of the commission meetings for months. What's going on there?
Well, our meetings are televised even as we speak. They go out to, I think we're on channel 78. We had a person who was in charge of doing that for us for, oh my God, for many years, Steve De Oliveira, who just recently retired last week, 2 weeks ago. And we have a new person who has taken over that role, and that person is in charge of making sure that these meetings are not only televised live, but they're also available on the internet if somebody wants to look at a meeting historically and see what happened. Additionally, our P and Z meetings are also recorded, and those are available on the internet as well. If somebody wants to see it, they could see that. Just like on our website, our Lauderdale-By-The-Sea town website, we have everything from who we are, who works here, as well as our budget. We print our budget. Every time we have a new budget, it's there. You can look back at our old budgets as well. With regards to the minutes, I was not aware that we're not up to date. I know that we recently lost our town clerk of many years, who also moved on, and we have a new town clerk that's an acting town clerk at this time. And that's something, if that is a problem, I will look into it as well. With regards to the minutes.
Just to clarify, only because it's been my experience for the last couple of days trying to find some information of what's been going on in this town. The P&Z minutes and agenda and PDFs are there. Your workshop agendas, PDF attachments are there. Minutes from the meeting, not there. And haven't been for a very long time.
Oh, well,
Unless something's wrong with my laptop.
well, I appreciate you raising that to my attention. We'll look into that. We have our minutes that are presented to us in every packet. And so if you look in our agenda packet that we get prior to our meeting, and we try to get that no later than Friday before our Tuesday town meetings. Sometimes we would like to get it earlier, Thursday, but you know, we have people and staff that are working hard on many things. Within our packet, there is minutes of the previous meeting or meetings before, especially meetings that involve issues that we have to opine on, involving things that we spoke about maybe even a year before. So the agenda packages will be complete with those minutes. So I would suggest maybe looking at the agenda packets, and maybe you'll find them in there.
There are no agenda packets either, just for your commission meetings. I thought I was missing something, so I actually made a few phone calls to some people in the league and said, can you, including somebody who lives here in this town.
Yeah, I'm getting a cheat here because I'm getting a head shake from our town manager, which is indicating to me that, that it is there. But we'll fix it. We'll make sure that it's more accessible if it's
Okay.
not.
Thank you. You're not on the commission, so do you have an opinion about that or
No, not really.
any
I
knowledge?
think you did a good job there. So.
Okay. All right, that pretty much wraps up all the questions that were submitted to me. It's now time for the wrap-up, and I would say there are a lot of similarities between these two candidates. So maybe in your wrap-up, you could include, if somebody's making a decision here, which person to vote for, it might be helpful to outline the differences between you. And Randy started in the 90-second open, so you begin with the 60-second close.
Oh. Well, what I can bring to the table here is I've run a successful multi-million-dollar business. It's a small business. Most of you know where I'm at over there. You can't stay in business that long unless a couple things. You got to be able to budget. You got to be able to watch your expenses. So as far as budgeting goes and looking after other people's money, it's something I do quite often too, is OPM, other people's money. And you have to treat other people's money even more carefully than you treat your own. One of the things that I have an advantage as well too, as a business person, whether you're a business person, hotelier, restaurant person, whatever, professional, you have to listen to what your customers tell you. If you don't, you are not going to be a successful business. You will not be around for long. So you have to listen to your customers. You are not there to be right. You are not there to be smarter than your customers. You're there to give them what they need, what they want, okay? That's what a business person does, and I can bring that to the community as well. I want to listen to what you folks want. I don't want to sit up here and make the decisions myself. I want you to make the decisions as a community, and a majority of you tell me what you want for this community.
Your summary, sir?
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you to the Women's League for allowing me the opportunity to answer the questions submitted by our residents. This is very unique. In the last 4 years, working with my fellow commissioners on the dais, I believe we were able to accomplish a lot. We were able to maintain the unique differences from our neighbors to the north and to the south by preserving our small town feel and charter. One of those differences is our low height restrictions, which we all hold very dear. We were able to ensure that we have a local government that is transparent, effective, and efficient. We were able to continue to be reasonable stewards of our public money, remaining debt-free while continuing to keep a low millage rate. We continued being fiscally conservative, fiscally responsible while being economically competitive. We continue to foster respectful and peaceful citizen participation within our town and at our town meetings. I believe there is a clear difference between my opponent and myself. I believe experience counts, and that is why I am asking you for your vote. I want to continue for 4 more years pursuing the projects that we have worked on so strongly together up here. And I am asking for your vote on March 8th. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that wraps it up. Thank you very, very much for coming. Don't forget that Election Day is March 8th. You vote by precinct on Election Day. The polls are open from 7A to 7P. The 2 locations, one is here in Jarvis Hall and the other one at Assumption Church. Don't forget that there is early voting because of that state district number 33 election. And there are 4 locations for that, plus drop boxes for the vote by mail. Again, the LBTS website will post a link to the Broward Supervisor of Elections website to give you the details if you're interested. So again, my thanks to Brian Kuszmar and Randy Strauss, and I thank you very much for being interested to be informed. Good night.
Good night.